There's only one.
Minutes to spare.
Okay, I've got to wait a few seconds till it turns to 6, but it's getting close.
Well, cut. Rewriting about it, not much of it.
Okay, Lisa, I didn't hear the recordings. We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order for Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and ask the clerk to certify the meeting notice.
This meeting has been noticed in accordance with Idaho Code 74-204.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Jorgensen? Yes. Councilmember Page?
Here.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Here.
Thank you. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as it's written.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Move to special business. F1, council, I'm asking you to authorize me to reappoint Russ Heller to the Garden City Library Board for a 5-year term. Russ is with us. Russ is still one of us. And would you like Russ to do a campaign speech?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just have so much respect for Russ Heller and appreciate his service to the city for many years now. It was a joy working beside him up here, and I've come to know his decision-making as sound, and just really think he would be a continued asset on the board. So with that, I would ask for another 5-year term and approve your appointment if there's a second.
I would second.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, the clerk call the roll, please.
Councilmember Jorgensen?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Councilmember Page?
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. And thank you, seriously, Russ. Appreciate it.
Can I just say a word about Lindsay?
Oh, yes, please do.
Said this many times, it's my favorite board, and in part because our library director is fantastic. She knows her work, she's efficient, she's productive, and it makes you straight here. She understands. The library board has folks who they're models of civility. They keep a sense of humor, and we get a lot of productive work done efficient. Thanks to Kate, President, and the other members of the board. So thank you for the opportunity for the service.
Well, we're thrilled to have it. It's, as a mayor, sometimes you wake up in the morning early or in the middle of the night, or you got something on your mind, but I never have to worry about the library. So thanks. Appreciate it. In that same vein, we'll move on to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Item F2 is the reappointment of Kent Brown to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term, beginning now, basically. I think everybody's pretty familiar with Kent, especially.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mayor, I would just definitely make a motion to authorize your reappointment of Kent Brown to the Garden City Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term from June 2025 to June 2028. And I'll just say real quickly, when I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, wow, there was just the amount of knowledge in Kent's brain about our city and the zoning questions and just how he considered everything that came before that commission was very insightful, and every one of his comments was well thought out. So I'm glad that he wants to continue on the commission. And so, yes, I'll just reiterate, definitely move to authorize his reappointment.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second.
I would second.
Great. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Page,
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacobs, Jorgensen.
Yes.
Abbott.
Okay, thank you. I'm exercising discipline and keeping quiet.
Thank you.
Okay. Got our monthly staff reports for the council. We've got a few department heads here if you need to talk to them, but I always encourage you to call them during the week if you have questions or concerns.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do have a question if the chief would come up.
Sure.
Chief, my question is regarding the report of May 26th, that the 6800 block of Horseshoe Bend Road involving battery on K9 and battery on an officer. My first question is, are both the officer and the K9 okay?
Councilmember Jorgensen, Mayor, yes, they are. Yeah, the suspect bit one of our officers in the leg. It actually went through the pant leg and broke his skin a little bit, and the dog's fine.
Very good. Mr. Wadums, I presume that you would be prosecuting this case?
Mayor, Councilmember Jorgensen, I believe he was arrested on felonies, and so that will be my good friend Jan Bennett, the Ada County prosecutor, that will be prosecuting that because it's a felony case.
Thank you. Thank you.
He was in on a $250,000 loan.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. That takes us to the Development Services Department notice of decision.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I pull the council?
Yes.
Council members, looking at the decisions made, do any of you wish to call out something as having a significant adverse impact on the city?
Not I.
Not me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We'll move to item 5. Potential URA projects to enhance the Greenbelt entrance at 32nd, 33rd, and 40th. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me pull up my reason.
Enjoy your evening.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me to present here tonight. I'm before you seeking essentially your permission to move forward or trudge forward in this pocket park project that I have had the opportunity to pursue and brainstorm. I think that this pocket park project would benefit the citizens of Garden City, and it would also help enhance the green belt and overall connectivity between the city, its businesses, and again, its citizens and the surrounding jurisdictions as well. I have presented the same presentation and the concepts to the Urban Renewal Board, as the 4 parks that I'll go into further detail on are in that urban renewal district. We have 32nd, 33rd, and 40th Street, as well as 42nd Street. 2 of these parks, including the 32nd Street and 33rd Street, would have the opportunity to use the Fairview Acres water or Fairview Acres lateral water as part of an amenity or feature of the parks. I have been in contact with Fairview Acres Lateral, and they are supportive of the idea. We don't have drawings at this point, of course, so we'll need further permission, but they're excited about the opportunity to use that water. So as I get into it, I've outlined the urban renewal district boundary and have circled in red where these 4 parks could be. When I was presenting to the urban renewal board, it was, this is preliminary in nature, so we might not be able to get all 4 depending on the future funding requests, as well as there are 2 sites that would require a public-private partnership. That would be at the 42nd Street between the Boys and Girls Club and Fishers, as well as 32nd, which is between Talaya and the Riverside Hotel. So in dissecting these different locations, I've kind of outlined a very rough sketch of the overall square footage and what it might look like. We will need to have civil drawings drafted up, surveys performed to actually establish those boundaries. But on the left-hand side, this is 32nd Street. Sorry, the presentation isn't really showing the full. So this is 32nd Street. We have street view. I have been out on site and taken pictures of the existing conditions. However, what I have in presenting on these slides is basically what it looks like today. Then we have the terminus of 33rd Street. This along with the 32nd Street could be our bigger parks. The other parks, depending on how things are surveyed and what areas we actually can utilize, those would be the smaller locations or smaller parks. But again, there's the possibility of having the water be utilized in these parks at 32nd and 33rd Street. 40th Street would be the smallest park. I don't even know if we could call it a park, but more of a gateway. Essentially, where these bollards are is kind of all that we're working with at this point. We might be able to further enhance what exists of the green belt right now. But there is ongoing planning efforts to have 40th Street have sidewalks with ACHD, or maybe not continue the sidewalk system to the green belt. So this is kind of an ongoing conversation and what we could actually get here, but for now it would just be more of that gateway parklet. And then 42nd Street is another one up in the air. I was digging into all of the historical documents, agreements, and easements in this location. There's a lot of cross parking agreements that were made between Fishers Boys and Girls Club and the city. I have an easement highlighted here on the right-hand side. And then in this picture where I've outlined in red is where there's cross parking agreements. So that will need to have a lot more research done as to what space we can actually utilize for a pocket park. And when thinking about these pocket parks, I came up with kind of a vision board, a Pinterest board. What kind of mood or vibes are we trying to get with these parks? We definitely want to have some kind of low maintenance vegetation and furniture because after the urban renewal district is able to fund and install whatever it is they are capable of doing, it would be up to the city to maintain all of that landscaping and furniture and amenities. So lower maintenance would be better as far as budgeting goes. I personally think that the natural concepts that play off of the river and nature would be really great in these parks. Think of like natural lines and textures, color schemes, as opposed to geometric hard shapes, really bright colors. But that's just my personal opinion. And it's definitely subject to change. Also thinking shade trees and pollinator plants. We are along the green belt. We have the riparian area. We want to enhance that natural feeling and of course contribute to the ecosystem down there by the river as opposed to not. And then with drainage, there's options potentially for permeable pavers. I was thinking something like stamped concrete to have that texturized material. And then there could potentially be some kind of floodplain mitigation in these parks. Again, just depending on the size and what we can actually incorporate into them. Here's just some examples of like seating could be concrete, stones, something more urbanized like this bench this guy is sitting on. This is just a vision board again. The park signs, I love this pollinator habitat sign that we have right here by City Hall. I think that would be great to keep it consistent across all of the Greenbelt parks. I'm looking at these 4 parks as a collective park project, but each one is kind of individual. So each sign could have its own name. So you could identify where you are, but they all kind of tie in together. So hinting at a common theme between all 4 while being distinct. I think interactive play is great. Speaking to that water again, we could have water features like splash pads or misters or something like the Grove Plaza fountain downtown. Maybe not as big, maybe we want it that big, who knows. This is my attempt at AI photo generation. It was really fun, but I had to learn how to prompt. But I thought it was cool how it could show what we could do with that water. I think the educational elements and more of that interactive play is crucial to all of these parks if we can. We need to make sure to hit all different ages and demographics. So having something for the kids is crucial as well as for the adults in the parks. I liked this plaza concept with the big mature trees. That would probably be lower maintenance, and then just having great shade for people to relax and enjoy. And these are more of my AI creations. So in brainstorming themes or the connection between all 4 of them, I was obviously trying to run with the 4 parks concept, and I really liked the idea of having the 4 seasons. And so the overall theme would be seasons, of course, but each park could cater towards a particular season. And so you would have the summer park, autumn, winter, spring. They all represent something different, like autumn park, said reflection and transition with when you have like warmer colors. So you could have that as the landscaping. You could have oranges, deep reds, and golds. Whereas the spring could be more of a renewal and growth, where you have like hopeful, fresh, playful colors like pastels. Another theme that I thought of would be more of like an ecosystem or biosphere sort of theme where you have your woodland park, your meadow park, your desert / rock garden park, and then your wetland rain. And that would still speak to the plants that you can use. But for example, the woodland park would be enclosed and shady, maybe have the bigger tree canopies, whereas the rock garden or desert would be warmer, obviously, but then you would have like your succulents, more of your desert type vegetation. And each of these could be designated to the destination that would lend better towards itself. So the 40th Street Park, where it is more of that gateway, we're not going to be able to have a lot of vegetation there, I assume. And so having smaller vegetation like the desert or rock garden could be a good location for that type of park. Or there's a hybrid theme where I kind of combine both of them, where you have spring and meadow, summer and wetland, fall and woodland. These are just me brainstorming. Again, it could all be subject to change. And then I think naming the park would be fun for us as staff to do, us as city council, but I also think it's a great opportunity to involve the public. Same with the themes and what the public wants to see in these parks. And so it could be a submit your idea or your concept as to what you want to see in these parks. Or maybe we narrow it down for them and give them options A, B, C, and D, so it doesn't go too crazy or out of hand. But it's kind of up to us, I think, at this point to decide at some point how we want to name them. There's also the opportunity for the partnerships to name the parks after those particular partnerships maybe, or donations. There's just a lot of potential here. So I was working with Will Howard with the Stock Rock Group, just trying to get a rough quote estimation, like what could this possibly be? I know we have no information at this point. Here's the rough sketches of the places that I'm thinking. And he was kind enough to give me that rough estimation. He broke it down into the civil, the landscaping, surveys, etc. But overall, he anticipated a $100,000 to $200,000 budget, depending on the scope, but that would be for all 4 of the parks. And so I presented that number to the Urban Renewal Board about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And it wasn't an official funding request, so we were not funded at this point, but they said that they would fully support this type of project with those numbers. I just need to get permission from you guys and then continue to move forward and see what we're actually looking at. But I am open to any comments, or good or bad comments, suggestions, tips or tricks, I guess. This is like my first project like this, or any questions that you might.
Well, I have a comment, Hannah. When I was going through this, I got to tell you, the language you used in describing these parks really painted a picture. So I wanted to compliment you on that, because I've read a lot of reports, but warm colors of naming the colors and how, and I'm going, whoa. It painted a real picture. So that's just a comment on the presentation piece. I'll let the council comment on whether we're in support or not. Hope we are. But the brainstorming, the 42nd Street piece, there's just a lot going on with the asphalt there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we traded access from the Boys and Girls Club for the public in exchange for the part of the park ground that the expansion for the cafeteria consumed on the Boys and Girls Club. So, figuring out how to change that look and maybe define, is just kind of a free for all. Everybody, who gets to park where. So when I go down to see Teresa, I just go over in the gravel.
Yeah.
Since it's there. So anyway, comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
This is a good meeting tonight, because I'm about to use the word enthusiastic for about the 3rd time. but I am enthusiastically supportive of this idea. As that part of the city becomes more and more pedestrian focused, each one of these parks has a potential to be just a great welcome foyer, whatever that word is, into our city. So I'm excited about this, and I just think it's going to be great for us long term. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I also think that the word gateways comes to my mind as, you know, we have these gateways into the city and, you know, spaces that have this nod to nature and natural beauty, these concept drawings that you have. It just seems like a place where you would want to sit and read a book or visit with a friend, or, you know, these types of kind of relaxing activities. I also really like the idea of the community engagement for themes or names. I think the last thing we need is another park named after a person. So, although.
Sorry, Mayor.
Hallelujah. You know.
Just something that really speaks to our focus on the river. I think is key. So it'd be fun to see what the community comes up with. I know we have a lot of creative people.
Yes, we do.
Mr. Mayor. Apologies, are you finished, President?
I am finished. Thank you.
Ms. Hill, I want to compliment you on tackling a project like this. It's very creative. Your presentation is beautiful. I'm very enthusiastic. I love the concept. I do think that 42nd is going to be a challenge. I just saw a school bus drive over a curb just the other day, trying to navigate that area. But it's fantastic. You know, I love the concepts. I love the idea of getting the community involved. I do think your recommendation is to kind of have a scope so that we don't have 13,000 different opinions to sift through. And I did have an idea, which was triggered by a park in Austin, and I thought it was very creative. They had boards and it was very nature centric. And to engage the public, there were challenges to identify plants or, you know, bugs or whatever in different areas. And it's just another way to kind of appreciate and be more aware of the physical surrounding that you're enjoying. So I thought, you know, that might be something to consider that would engage both children and adults. I don't think our big structures and play equipment will be appropriate for these areas in my mind, but beautiful presentation. Love the idea and concept.
Thank you.
Well, council, the matter before us is to authorize staff, in this case, Hannah Veal, to continue the development of this and report back to us as it progresses. And periodically, I just recommend you either come a little early or have a little work session at the end, just so you can update the council on how this develops. I've had one inquiry. She's sitting in the audience here. Hannah Ball has this sparked her interest, so you're probably going to hear from her. I know she's always got ideas and is pretty well connected down there. Council, I think we ought to codify the enthusiasm with some sort of a motion to authorize continuation of this effort as presented.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I move for continued efforts in the potential URA project. And would encourage frequent connections with us to let us know how progress is going.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Well, thank you.
Good job, Hannah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, one other question, Hannah. Otherwise, it won't get on the record if you don't come up. Is this a self-directed effort? Pretty
Yes,
much?
Mayor, it pretty much is. I got encouraged to pursue this by Jenna Thornborough and Cynthia Rose with Urban Renewal. But I really tried picking it up and
Yeah.
going with it.
That's what I know. I just wanted to let the council know that it's it's a sign of taking ownership of her role here in the city. And so I wanted to get that on the record. So thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move down to ordinances, resolutions, and contracts, item G1. We still have a public hearing open from 5/27/25 on CPA FY 2024-0006. We wanted to hold it open in case there was additional testimony. Anna's looking at her phone, so I don't think she's going to say anything.
Mr. Mayor, I asked Ms. Ball if she would like to testify and she indicated no.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and Mayor, can you hear me?
I don't see anybody online. Am I reading that right?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So with that, this gentleman in front of me, you have anything to say about? Okay. Okay, thank you. I will close the public hearing on CPA FY 2024-0006 and turn it to the council for further action. Before I do that, though, for the council, Charles, Mr. Wadhams, will you
Yes.
bring us up to speed on this from your perspective?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would like to speak right now about agenda item number 2 and agenda number 3 under G. So I'm going to speak to, right now, I'm going to speak to G2 and G3. I would like to say that the Development Services Staff Report is on page 58 of your packet. My legal memo is on page 65 of your packet. Ordinance 1056-25 is on page 82 of your packet. And then the draft decision on CPA FY 2024-0006 is on page 108 of your packet. At the end of my little presentation here, I'm going to recommend a third reading of ordinance 1056-25 as amended, and I'll talk about my recommended amendments here in a minute. Mostly just clerical and scrivener errors. So I will go over that just so the council's aware. And then on agenda item G2 or G3, excuse me, I'm going to make a recommendation that there be a motion to adopt and publish ordinance 1056-25. I would like to spend a minute on 1056-25 and just go at a very high level, go over some of the things because it is a pretty extensive rewrite for Title 8. And so I would like to just make sure I've done my job to make sure that mayor and council understand those major rewrites. So starting on page 1 of the ordinance, which is on page 82 of your packet, then the first thing I want to point out is I've been trying really hard to shorten the length of the titles of the ordinances, and I do that primarily for time and also so Lisa Libby can catch a breath when she reads these things. You will notice that this is if this in the original iteration, it was quite a bit longer. Every amendment was indexed in the title. That's not necessary. We don't have to index every amendment in the title. So you'll see, first of all, in the title, it talks about what we're repealing, and then it talks about what we're replacing, and that's regarding the planned unit development and the minor planned unit development. And then it summarizes all the changes to Title 8, and I do it in a range. So I say, and there's a bunch of changes from chapter 1 through chapter 7, and then and so I think that encapsulates the requirement, and so that's a little bit shorter. You can look at the whereases. I did spend some time on the whereases, and it talks about why we're doing this. And so the second whereas, it says the city of Garden City has determined that the existing PUD ordinance requires substantial revision to better align with the city of Garden City's current land use goals and development priorities. I think that's what I heard through this whole process. It also talks about engaging in a stakeholder engagement process. That's the I think the sixth and seventh whereas, and that's specific to Wendy Carver Herbert and Bob Totten and their testimony. They were really helpful. They're stakeholders, obviously, and they were really helpful going through this process through their public hearing and their testimony. So I wanted to acknowledge that and some whereases. Turning to the meat of the ordinance then, on page 83, section 2 and section 3 talk about what we're repealing. We are repealing 86B7, or I should say you, not me. You are repealing 86B7 and you are repealing 86B8. And you're going to be replacing the old 86B7 with a new PUD code that I'll talk about here in a minute. The recommendation that's gone through the first reading and the second reading is that 86B8 in section 4, that's going to be reserved for a future time. We didn't have anything to put in there right now, so we're just simply going to reserve 86B8 for a future time. And so that's in section 4. Getting to the section 7 then, so section 2 and 3 were the repeal. Getting to section 7, that is the new PUD code, and that starts on the bottom of 83 of the packet. And so there's one thing I wanted to comment on for the record on page 84 then, and it's D1, and I just wanted to explain this. It talks about subjectivity, and I don't really like that term in our code. So I'm recommending that, and this is one of the amendments, I'm recommending that D1 just simply say administration by virtue of utilizing the PUD process, which relies on the applicant's proposed alternative to code standards. The applicant is choosing to participate in the process contained herein, period. I don't think we need to get into whether things are subjective or objective in our code, and so I make that recommendation for this third reading. The rest of the minor amendments primarily are just clerical or scrivener errors. For example, sometimes, and I'm looking now at page 85, sometimes it talks about PUD enhanced improvements and it capitalizes in enhanced improvements, and sometimes enhanced improvements is lowercase. So my amendment is just to make it all consistent, and it would just simply say PUD enhanced improvements with enhanced lowercase and improvements lowercase. And that's just to be consistent within the text of the amendment. So again, the scrivener issues. Now getting to the required findings, those are on page 80, starting on 87. Let me make sure I have this right. Going over to, no, that's not right, strike that. The required findings are on page 88, going over to page 89. And those are the findings that we spent a fair amount of time, development services and my department, we spent a fair amount of time trying to make these as objective as possible. So the first finding is the proposal for PUD adheres to at least one of the objectives of the Garden City Planned Unit Development Code. Initially, it said purposes and objectives, and I recommended to staff take out the word purposes. Purposes are kind of squishy. Let's just look right to the objectives. And so purposes was taken out, and it just says you have to comply with at least one, not all of them, at least one of the objectives of the Planned Unit Development Code. And then the applicant and staff that's reviewing this and the decision maker can go right to the objective section and see if one of those things are met or whether or not they're not met. The goal is to answer these questions with either a yes or no and not a maybe. So somebody can just go to the objective section and either one of those is met or one of those is not met. The second finding is again, tried to make that as objective as possible. And that just says you have to comply with this PUD code. And I think it's clear what the requirements of the PUD code are. Finding 3 says you have to comply or not be in conflict with the comprehensive plan. I think that's fine because our comprehensive plan is clear, and I think the goals are clear in the comprehensive plan. 4, the proposal is consistent with public health and safety concerns. There's plenty of case law that says that is a legal finding, that's an objective finding, that type of finding is fair in land use in Idaho. And then the last finding that's required is you have to comply with the design review code. And so those are the 5 findings. If you'll recall, in the old PUD code, between PUD, CUP, and design review, there's like 13 or 14 findings. And I have repeatedly recommended, let's get those 13 or 14 down to as little as possible. Why? Primarily, the less findings, the easier it is to write the reason statement. You don't have to explain 13 different findings. You just hit, so I think I'm happy with this. I think Development Services did a great job trying to narrow this down to what the criteria really are. And again, a lot of these 5 things should be able to be answered with either yes or no. And that's it for the PUD code. I do want to spend a minute for the rest of the ordinance, though. I did bring a demonstrative or illustrative exhibit, and that is my Garden City code book right here. I've had this thing in one version or another since 2003 when I started here. And you can see it's pretty thick. Most people rely with the online version, but I can tell you every judge on the 2nd floor of the 80 County Courthouse still has a physical book, and the judges, especially the senior judges, prefer paper, kind of like me. Want to be able to go through it and make sure it really exists, so on and so forth. So I brought it down here to say that the rest of this is a pretty big rewrite of some of these sections, and so I'd just like to summarize those. Beginning on page 89. And what happened here, Development Services staff, they wanted to rearrange things about what I'm going to talk about. So a lot of these things are rearranged within the code itself. So section 8 talks about we're adding a line to property maintenance. These are citywide property maintenance standards, and I believe most of the rest of the ordinance are citywide standards, not particular to a PUD, but for the whole city. So this adds a requirement for property maintenance. You can see then on section 10 and section 11 on page 89 that we're moving sections. So what it does is it repeals 82C14 and it repeals 82C15, and then it moves those over to 84B4 and 84B6. And that is, again, that's staff's recommendation to try to make it flow better. And so staff was trying to rearrange things to make sure it flows the best it possibly could. Section 12 now talks about a complete repeal and replace. So section 12 is repealing and replacing 84B3. And so at the top of page 90, that's now going to be called the general provisions. That's a complete rewrite of 84B3. It's a repeal and replace, and it's repealing single family and 2-family attached, and it's replacing it with general standards. So what's on page 9, 10, and 11, and I'll stop there. That's completely new, and I don't know why that's still underlined. That's just a formatting thing. I just want to make it clear that all that text is brand new. Those are all recommendations from Development Services, and it's all brand new stuff. In particular, this table on page 91. Now we have 3 different categories for residential amenity, and that's Class A, Class B, and Class C, and then it's broken down into quality of life, open space, and recreation. Looking to page 92, 84B4 is another repeal and replace, and it's a whole new section for ADUs. So this is a brand new regulation for accessory dwelling units. And so that goes on page 92 over to 93. You can look on section 14. That's a complete rewrite of 84B5 on page 93. You can see that there's some illustrations in here that staff wanted, and so that's why they're still in here, and it made it through the first and second reading. I do want to note in terms of amendments, on page 94, there's a diagram at the bottom, and it's right in the middle of that sentence. So I need to have staff take that diagram down to the bottom, to the end of the sentence. And so that's a slight amendment that again is a scrivener's error that is easy to clean up and just clerical. On page 96 of your of your packet, there's a new 84B6. That's a brand new section. That's for multifamily dwelling units and mixed use developments. And again, that was moved from another location. I want to highlight then on page 100 of your packet, there's a discussion about a Knox box. And the Knox box, this was requested by the police department. And so what you have, what you've heard on the first reading and the second reading is that for specific non-residential development, so these are non-residential, specifically large-scale non-residential, if there's a secured common corridor, they need a Knox box or equivalent, and it needs to be approved and authorized by the Garden City Police Department. And again, that's a life safety thing. I researched that. It's in my legal memo. Can we do that legally? Yes, we can. And it's a health and safety thing, and that's a recommendation from the police department. The rest of it, I think, pretty much speaks for itself. There was some formatting issues, minor. Councilmember Rasmussen caught it, and then I caught it. There's just so like, for example, on page 102, C should really be D, D should really be E. That's Scrivener's and formatting, and that will be cleaned up if you approve of this. And then on page 104, there's some added definitions. Now there's, to make it clear for everybody, hopefully, we have definitions of common open space, what a planned unit development is, what a planned unit development adjustment is, which is what this is all about, right? It's a planned unit adjustment is modifications, changes, or waivers. Staff recommended we include waivers in there. And so that's what we did. There's a definition for planned unit development, enhanced improvements. And now there's a definition for private open space. At the bottom of page 104, there's section 23. That's the severability clause that we put in every one of our ordinances in case there are any issues. And there's a couple other things I'd like to highlight before I stand for questions. There were a couple things in here that we specifically addressed because of lessons learned from the past, I would say. So on page 85, we specifically say under enhanced improvements, E1, it says the PUD process shall not be used solely for obtaining variances. Why did we put that in there? Because that's what people were trying to do. And I don't think the mayor and council was going with that. And so we are specifically saying in here, the PUD process shall not be used solely for obtaining variances. The other thing that we learned the hard way, I would say, or at least I did, is on page 88 then, areas of adjustment. It says, standards required through this section shall not be adjusted. Why is that in there? Because people tried to get the PUD criteria adjusted or waived. And so this clearly says is no, if you ask for a PUD, you got to comply with the PUD rules. You can't ask for a PUD and then ask for a waiver of the PUD. So hopefully that clarifies it for everybody. And that is my summary of the ordinance. And I've already made my recommendations regarding G2 and G3. With that, I stand for questions.
Any questions?
You need a drink of water?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm Lisa Lively.
Well, we spent some time on this and certainly, and I think it's been a great process. And we've modified it currently based on testimony, based on council input. So Mr. Wadhams, thank you for that summary.
Yes,
I think that is a good summary. Remind us where we are tonight. So with that, council, item G2 is properly before the council.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just a couple comments. I think this is really a case of less is more. I think this is more concise, more precise. There are provisions in here to prevent this from becoming a tool to circumvent our rules, our standards, to overcome the constant barrage of variations or requests for variance. And I just want to thank every staff member's hand who touched this. I know it was a lot to go through just from the council perspective. And I think that's a 10x, at least maybe a 30x for staff. So just want to make a record of my appreciation for that. And with those comments, I would move for a third reading of ordinance 1056-25
As amended.
As amended.
as amended.
By title only.
No, read the whole thing. My title.
Hold on.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
got a motion and a second, the third reading. Ordinance 1056-25 by title only as amended. Okay, with that, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk call roll.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Jorgensen?
Yes.
Councilmember Page?
Yes.
Third reading, ordinance 1056-25, an ordinance of the City of Garden City, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, repealing the existing plan unit development and minor plan unit development code, Garden City Code, Title 8, Development Code, Chapter 6, Administration, Article B, Specific Provisions, Section 7, Plan Unit Developments, Section 8, Minor Plan Unit Developments, adopting a new comprehensive plan unit development code, Section 7, Plan Unit Developments, and amending standards for property maintenance, non-residential, residential dwelling units, amenities, mixed use, open space, subdivision, design standards and provisions and definitions, Chapter 1, General Regulations, Article C, Property Maintenance Provisions, Section 3, Property Maintenance Standards, through Chapter 7, References, Article A, Definitions, Section 2, Definition of Terms, repealing conflicting city code provisions, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. We'll move to G3. This is a motion to adopt and publish ordinance 1056-25.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Jorgensen?
Yes.
Councilmember Page?
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. We'll move to item G4 now. This is approval of CPA FY 2024-0006. These are the findings of fact, conclusions of law. Do you have any comments on these before we proceed?
Just briefly, if I may.
Yes.
Mayor. Okay, thank you. So the draft decision that is on page 112 of your packet, I just wanted to primarily draw your, I'm sorry, it starts on page 108, but I wanted to draw your attention to page 112 because that's what I added since the last time, based on the interfaith case. And I can tell you that I was in my Idaho Municipal Attorneys Summer Conference last Friday, and one of the topics was all about the interfaith case. And I got to hear what other cities and towns and villages are doing, and people and cities are all over the place. So I'm comfortable with my legal advice here. I feel sorry for some of the other towns that don't have the staff that we do, because they're really floundering on what to do. They're talking about maybe contracting decisions out to private law firms, hiring additional attorneys. I mean, but it's hard for small towns that really don't have a lot of staff. So that it's still, everybody's talking about the interfaith case and what the precedent means for us in particular. What it means for this particular decision is I've added rationale in here, and I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable with it. One of the things that they talked about Friday is that some jurisdictions don't even give you a draft decision until after you deliberate, because some jurisdictions think staff is just writing it for you. And so why don't you tell staff that you would like to be in here? And so some jurisdictions provide it to you ahead of time. A lot of jurisdictions provide it after the council deliberates. I think either's fine. There's pros and cons to both. So this is the way we're doing it right now anyways. I hope you're good with the rationale. I go through the analysis. And basically all I did is I took the findings that staff had in the table and I just added to it. And so hopefully Mayor and Council is comfortable with it. And if you are, I recommend a motion to approve the decision.
Okay. Pleasure of the council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to approve CPA FY 2024-0006. Findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Page,
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen,
Yes.
Councilmember Jorgensen.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries, of course. We'll go to item G5. Now, this is a surplus property authorization to get rid of some stuff. So were you going to talk about this?
Mayor, I had a little document that I attached with the.
You sure you want to get rid of that old mattress in the barn? Okay.
No, but I stand here for any questions if there are any.
There are any? Okay, hearing none, it's a pleasure of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution that is 1208-25 relating to surplus property.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Rasmussen,
Yes.
Councilmember Jorgensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Page.
Yes.
Okay, now probably what Colin's really up here for, item G6. Authorizing me to sign an agreement with Keller and Associate as described on the agenda. Are there questions of Colin? I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to say about it?
Actually, there is.
Okay.
The mayor, council members, if you look at the map that I provided with the agenda request, one of the projects is an urban renewal project on 33rd Street that goes up to Clay. A portion of this project falls within Garden City and falls outside of the urban renewal area. So that little section from Osage to Chinden, that is included on the request, in the same request as 45th Street here. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that there's a full project that's Garden City responsibility, a small portion of an urban renewal project that's Garden City responsibility. Those two are added together for this $125,000 for the engineering work on it. So we'll be going in front of a urban renewal board. I think in about 3 weeks or so is in their July meeting, requesting funding for the 33rd project.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate the work on this. You know, it's
You're welcome. Yes.
it's great seeing those keep picking away these projects on the east end of town that we've desperately needed and trying to get things in good shape. So when the new district forms, south side of Chinden, we're ready to go. So, okay. Let's go to the council.
Mr. Mayor, just a thank you to Director Schmidt. I hadn't caught that that portion Osage to Clay there was outside of the thing, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I would move to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Keller Associates Inc. for the engineering design work.
I would second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Jorgensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Page,
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Council, that concludes the business on our agenda. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
A second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. We stand adjourned.